This question comes from Maya, who asks, what would happen if gravity suddenly reversed for exactly 24 hours and then went back to normal? Let's start with the first second. Right now, gravity is pulling you toward the center of the Earth at 9.8 meters per second squared. If that reversed, you'd suddenly be accelerating upward at the same rate. If you're sitting in a chair reading this, you would immediately begin falling toward the ceiling. The average ceiling is about 2.5 meters above your head. You'd reach it in about 7/10 of a second, hitting it at roughly 15 miles per hour. That's about the same as falling off a one-story building, except you'd land on your head. This is, medically speaking, not ideal. If you happen to be outside, things would be worse in a different way. You'd fall upward into the open sky, accelerating at the same rate you'd normally fall downward. Within about 10 seconds, you'd be going 70 miles per hour. Your terminal velocity, the speed at which air resistance balances out gravity, would still be about 120 miles per hour, the same as for a regular skydiver, just in the wrong direction. After 1 minute, you'd be about a mile up, roughly the height of a skydiving jump, except there's no parachute and the ground is getting farther away. After 10 minutes, you'd be above the cruising altitude of commercial aircraft. You would have already passed out from the thin air around the 3-minute mark, which is honestly kind of a mercy. But passing out from thin air might be optimistic, because the air would be leaving too. The atmosphere is held to Earth by gravity. Reverse gravity and the entire atmosphere starts accelerating upward into space. It doesn't vanish instantly. Air has inertia and takes time to move. But within about 20 minutes, the air pressure at the surface would feel noticeably lower. Within an hour, it would feel like standing on top of Mount Everest. Within 2 hours, it would feel like standing in space, because it would basically be space.
This is also bad news for sound, since sound needs air to travel through. So the screaming would stop fairly quickly. The oceans would go at the same time. Water is heavier than air, but gravity doesn't care. It accelerates everything equally, as Galileo famously demonstrated by probably not dropping things from the Tower of Pisa. The entire ocean would peel off the seafloor and begin rising, forming a surreal, enormous ascending blob of salt water, shipping containers, fish, and very confused whales. A rough calculation shows that the water, accelerating at 9.8 meters per second squared, would reach escape velocity, about 11.2 kilometers per second, in roughly 19 minutes. After that point, even when gravity comes back, that water is never coming home. Earth's total ocean mass is about 1.4 times 10 to the 21st kilograms. That's a lot of water to lose. The International Niagara Committee would be furious, although they would also be in space, so their enforcement options would be limited. Now, you might think the ground beneath your feet would at least stay put. After all, rock is solid, rock is heavy, rock is reliable. Rock is leaving. Earth's internal structure is held together by gravity. The pressure at the core is about 360 gigapascals, roughly 3.6 million times atmospheric pressure, caused by the weight of everything above it pushing down. Reverse gravity, and all that pressure suddenly wants to go the other direction. The compressive forces become expansive forces. Here's the problem. Rock is strong in compression, which is why mountains can exist, but it is dramatically weaker in tension. The tensile strength of granite is only 7 megapascals, about 50,000 times weaker than the pressure at the core. When gravity reverses, the interior of the planet, already under enormous stored pressure, would start to expand outward with catastrophic force. Within seconds, the crust would crack, not like an earthquake, like an egg being unboiled. Magma from the mantle would come screaming outward through every fracture and fissure. The technical term for this is the planet exploding, although a geophysicist would probably prefer something more measured, like rapid gravitationally induced lithospheric disassembly. Same thing.
The gravitational binding energy of Earth, the energy holding the whole planet together, is about 2 times 10 to the 32 joules. For reference, the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs delivered about 4 times 10 to the 23 joules. So this would be roughly 1 billion times worse than the thing that ended the Cretaceous. The dinosaurs at least had an Earth to go extinct on. Within the first hour, the planet would be in the early stages of tearing itself apart. Within a few hours, you'd no longer really call it a planet. You'd call it an expanding debris cloud with sentimental value. By the time the 24 hours are up and gravity returns to normal, there wouldn't be much of an Earth left to apply normal gravity to. The material that used to be our planet would be an expanding cloud of rock vapor, seawater plasma, and the vaporized remains of every building, every tree, and every copy of every book ever written. Gravity, now pointing the right way again, would begin pulling this cloud back together. Over thousands of years, the debris would slowly coalesce, eventually reforming into a glowing molten ball of rock, roughly Earth-sized, orbited by a thin haze of steam and gas. It would look almost exactly like Earth did 4.5 billion years ago, right after it first formed. The cooling, the oceans condensing, the first life, the evolution, the dinosaurs, the mammals, the civilizations. All of it could theoretically happen again, which is kind of beautiful in a way. We'd get a complete do-over, the whole history of life on Earth from scratch. It only costs one bad day.